For what
Chairman,
purpose does the gentlewoman from Wyoming seek recognition?
Madam Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mrs. Lummis of Wyoming. At the end of the bill, before the short title, insert the following section. None of the funds made available under this Act may be used to plan or undertake sales or any other transfers of natural or low-enriched uranium from the Department of Energy that combined exceed 1,917 metric tons of uranium as uranium hexafluoride equivalent in fiscal year 2013.
Pursuant to the order of the House today, the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Lummis, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I first want to thank my colleague, Representative Hinojosa from Texas, for joining me in this amendment. Now, here's an undisputed fact. Today, the United States imports more than 90% of our uranium from foreign countries. Some of them don't like us very much. We have an ample supply of uranium in the West and across this country. A lack of supply is not the problem. We import that much uranium for 2 reasons. First, because accidents that happened decades ago cooled interest in nuclear energy in our country, so companies slowed down their production. But here's the second reason. Just as domestic energy began to recover from these disasters, our own government started dumping into the market excess uranium it has stockpiled. DOE uses the stockpile to raise funds for itself for various purposes, a fact that this Appropriations Subcommittee has been concerned about for quite some time. Every time the federal government dumps its excess stockpile into the market, it depresses the price of uranium. Depressed uranium prices halt private investment in domestic mining and conversion and hurt American jobs in the West and the Midwest. Being reasonable folks, the uranium miners have agreed to accept that the Department of Energy can dump into the market up to 10% of domestic demand for uranium. That has been the consensus approach since 2008. However, last month, DOE departed from the consensus and announced that it would dump into the market a volume of uranium that is overwhelming in its scope, 9,000 tons, an amount that is orders of magnitude greater than 10% of domestic demand. That is what my amendment today seeks to end. The price-distorting dumping of uranium in the open market above what has been the consensus in the uranium industry for years and above a level that can be weathered by U.S. companies offering U.S. jobs in uranium mining. Now, here's why my amendment gets politically sticky. High-profile members of Congress from the Midwest are trying to protect 1,200 jobs for 1 year at the United States Enrichment Corporation facility in Kentucky. Now, let me be clear. I don't want jobs lost in Paducah, Kentucky, but I also don't want jobs lost in Wyoming and the West. And I want my colleagues to understand this. While the actions of the Department of Energy may help save 1,200 jobs for 1 year in Kentucky, it will also end 1,200 jobs in the West and Midwest for much longer than that. So the Department of Energy's dumping onto the open market of $815 million worth of uranium to further bail out a failing private company, USEC, will result in no net savings of jobs. Over $800 million to save no net jobs is a stunningly bad investment. The good news is we can protect jobs in Kentucky and the West at the same time. We do not have to choose. Here's how. Vote for this bipartisan amendment. If my amendment passes, DOE will still transfer 62% of the 9,000 tons of depleted uranium before my amendment even takes effect. After that, DOE can still continue its transfers, just under a reasonable cap that doesn't destroy domestic uranium mining and conversion in the process. Here are the facts. My amendment does not halt work at any of USEC's failing sites. It does not prevent transfers for national security purposes. It does not halt the cleanup of sites in Ohio. In fact, my amendment provides a way for all of these projects to move forward efficiently and fairly. The bottom line is this: we do not need to sacrifice jobs in Wyoming or Illinois to support jobs in Kentucky. That is a false choice. We can do both, and that is exactly what my amendment does. I implore my colleagues to give DOE's actions careful thought here. DOE's plan is a market-distorting government intrusion into the private market. We cannot stop it in full, but we can rein it in next year in a way that is fair to every single stakeholder in this debate. I ask my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield back, Madam Chairman.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition to the gentlelady's amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I share the gentlelady's concern on the Department's continued off-budget use of its uranium transfer authority to circumvent the appropriations process and avoid congressional oversight. Congressional oversight is essential in order to make sure there are adequate protections in place to protect our domestic uranium mining and conversion industry. However, this amendment is too broad an approach for what is, by most estimates, a very complex issue. There are several uses for the many uranium transfer authorities given to the Secretary of Energy that support ongoing national security activities. And there is still a great deal of ambiguity of whether this language in this amendment would prohibit funding for a depleted uranium tails transfer that will keep the Paducah plant in Kentucky operating for another year. That deal would sustain, and there may be a question in terms of how many jobs are here, but our estimates say will sustain 2,000 jobs in fiscal year 2013 and provide the needed uranium fuel to produce tritium to supply our nuclear weapons stockpile. I hope we can continue to work together, the gentlelady and I and members of the Authorizing Committee and the Appropriations Committee on Energy and Water, to find a solution that addresses all of these and other concerns. I urge my colleagues to reluctantly but to vote no on this amendment and yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Wyoming. Those in favor say yes. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Wyoming will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Nebraska rise?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report.
Amendment offered by Mr. Fortenberry of Nebraska. At the end of the bill, before the short title, insert the following section. None of the funds made available by this Act may be used to finalize, implement, or enforce the proposed rule entitled Energy Conservation Program, Energy Conservation Standards for Battery Chargers and External Power Supplies, 77 Federal Register 18478, March 27, 2012, with respect to the product Class 7 as described in such proposed rule.
Pursuant to the order of the House of today, the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Fortenberry, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to offer this common sense amendment to protect American jobs and reduce regulatory burdens. Quite simply, this amendment would block the Department of Energy from implementing unnecessary energy conservation standards for golf cart battery chargers. Madam Chairman, I recognize that reasonable regulations are necessary to protect human health and the environment. However, we must guard against costly rules that provide no meaningful benefit to the United States, but instead encourage the shift of American jobs overseas to lower-wage countries where environmental standards are minimal. The proposed golf cart battery charger rule is clearly such a regulation. The proposed standards would achieve minimal energy savings, and the Department of Energy itself acknowledges that they would result in U.S. manufacturing jobs being sent overseas. While I support the overall goal of promoting energy efficiency, I am very concerned about this proposed regulation that directly affects more than 100 jobs right where I live. Madam Chair, last week's unemployment figures highlight the economic challenges we face in our country. Job growth is slowing and unemployment is ticking up. In this kind of economic climate, why would we want to intentionally force American jobs overseas through increased and unnecessary regulation? I would also like to emphasize that golf cart battery chargers should not even be included in this proposed rule, which is intended to cover consumer products. It is my understanding that about 90% of new golf carts are sold to businesses for fleets, while less than 10% of new golf cars are for personal use by individuals. This does not meet the significant extent standard necessary to be considered a consumer product. It is clear that the proposed rule would make American manufacturers of battery chargers less competitive, and it would cost American jobs. So we must ask, what would we achieve by implementing this rule? According to the Department of Energy's calculations, making this change would result in energy savings of only about $6 per charger per year. That's because these chargers are already very highly efficient. With that, Madam Chair, I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, which will help protect American jobs, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Appreciate the recognition. I will not oppose the gentleman's amendment, but I do have some concerns. First, I would like to say that I hope that we will not begin to legislate every rule coming out of the Department of Energy on this particular bill, though I understand the frustration that the Department of Energy is capable of causing from time to time. However, in this instance, I do understand that the Department is responding to the concerns expressed by the gentleman from Nebraska, and it is anticipated that a resolution is expected soon. On that basis, I do not oppose the amendment as a gentle reminder for the Department to address this issue expeditiously, and with that, I would yield back my time.
The gentleman from Indiana yields back. The gentleman from Nebraska.
I yield back my time, Madam Chair.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Nebraska. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
Right.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Flores of Texas. At the end of the bill, before the short title, add the following new section. Section: None of the funds made available by this Act may be used to enforce Section 526 of the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, Public Law 110-140, 42 U.S.C. 17142.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to offer an amendment which addresses another misguided and restrictive federal regulation. Section 526 of the Energy Independence and Security Act prevents federal agencies from entering into contracts for the procurement of a fuel unless its life cycle greenhouse gas emissions are less than or equal to emissions from an equivalent conventional fuel produced from conventional petroleum sources. In summary, my amendment would stop the government from enforcing this ban on all federal agencies funded by the Energy and Water Development Appropriations Bill. The initial purpose of Section 526 was to stop the Defense Department's plans to buy and develop coal-based or coal-to-liquids jet fuel. This restriction was based on the opinion of some environmentalists that coal-based jet fuel might produce more greenhouse gas emissions than traditional petroleum. We must ensure that our military has adequate fuel resources and that it can rely on domestic and more stable sources of fuel. Unfortunately, Section 526's ban on fuel choice now affects all federal agencies, not just the Defense Department. This is why I'm offering this amendment again today to the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill. Federal agencies should not be burdened with wasting their time studying fuel restrictions when there is a simple fix, and that fix is to not restrict our fuel choices based on extreme environmental views, policies, and misguided regulations like those in Section 526. With increasing competition for energy and fuel resources, and with the continued volatility and instability in the Middle East, it is now more important than ever for our country to become more energy independent and to further develop and produce all of our domestic energy resources. Placing limits on federal agencies' fuel choices is an unacceptable precedent to set in regard to America's energy policy independence and our national security. Madam Chair, Section 526 makes our nation more dependent on Middle East oil. Stopping the impact of Section 526 will help us to promote American energy, improve the American economy, and create American jobs. In some circles, there is a misconception that my amendment somehow prevents the federal government and our military from being able to produce and use alternative fuels. Madam Chair, this viewpoint is categorically false. All my amendment does is to allow the federal purchasers of these fuels to acquire the fuels that best and most efficiently meet their needs. I offered a similar amendment to the CJS Appropriations Bill, and it passed with strong bipartisan support. My similar amendment to the Milcon VA Appropriations Bill also passed by voice vote. My friend Mr. Conaway also had language added to the Defense Authorization Bill to exempt the Defense Department from this burdensome regulation. Let's remember the following facts about Section 526. It increases our reliance on Middle Eastern oil. It hurts our military readiness, our national security, and our energy security. It also prevents the potential increased use of some sources of safe, clean, and efficient American oil and gas. It also increases the cost of American food and energy. It hurts American jobs and the American economy. Last, but certainly not least, it costs our taxpayers more of their hard-earned dollars. I urge my colleagues to support the passage of this common-sense amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserved. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized. For what purpose would you?
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairman, I rise in support of the amendment by the gentleman from Texas. The gentleman's amendment enhances our national security by giving the federal government alternatives to imported petroleum fuels. Gas prices this year are at record highs, and the nation imports nearly half of its oil. Our bill takes a comprehensive approach to once and for all to reduce gas prices and our reliance on imported oil. Unfortunately, by declaring some fuel options to be off-limits to federal fleets, Section 526 of the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007 limits our ability to reduce our nation's dependence on oil imports. By undoing that law, the amendment puts all the alternatives back on the table so the nation can begin developing and using fuels that are made with resources right here in the United States. Energy self-sufficiency is a national security issue, and this amendment takes a step in the right direction by adding to the comprehensive approach in our bill. I support the gentleman's amendment, and I'm prepared to accept it. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
I'll claim time in opposition to the gentleman's amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Appreciate the recognition. I do rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment. Section 526 is, I believe, a common-sense provision that stops federal agencies from wasting taxpayers' dollars on new alternative fuels that are dirtier and more polluting than the fuels we use today. Section 526 simply bars agencies from entering into contracts to purchase alternative and unconventional fuels that emit more carbon pollution than conventional fuels on a life cycle basis. Section 526 doesn't prevent the sale of dirty fuels, nor does it prevent the federal agencies from buying these fuels if they need to. Instead, it simply prevents the federal government from propping up the makers of dirty fuels with long-term contracts. Government policy, given the problems we face as far as our energy policy, should help drive the development of alternative fuels that cut pollution and carbon emission, not increase it. The effects of this provision has been that it has spurred development of advanced biofuels. These fuels are being successfully tested and proven today on U.S. Navy planes at supersonic speeds. It is a testament to this country's ingenuity. Opponents of the section claim that it creates problems for federal agencies, and that is simply not the case. For example, the Department of Defense supports Section 526, recognizing that tomorrow's soldiers, sailors, air personnel, and Marines are going to need a greater range of energy sources. Last July, the Department of Defense stated very clearly, and I quote, "The provision has not hindered the Department from purchasing the fuel we need today worldwide to support military missions, but it also sets an important baseline in developing the fuels we need for the future." Again, the Department of Defense. DOD has also said that repealing Section 526 could complicate the Department's efforts to provide better energy options to our warfighters and take advantage of the promising developments in homegrown biofuels. And again, I am quoting the Department of Defense. If DOD, the government's largest fuel purchaser, believes that Section 526 is workable and helpful, that should be true for other agencies as well. And in fact, the agencies we're addressing today have not expressed any concerns that I am aware of about Section 526, or have they asked for this provision. I believe this amendment could also damage the developing biofuels sector at the worst possible time for our economy. It could send a very negative signal to America's advanced biofuel industry and could result in adverse impacts to U.S. job creation, rural development efforts, and the export of world-leading technology. Developing and bringing advanced low-carbon biofuels to scale is a critical step in reducing the nation's dependence on oil. And this section, Section 526, is a key part of this process. And for these reasons, would certainly be opposed to the gentleman's amendment and would reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Indiana reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Madam Chair, how much time do I have left?
The gentleman from Texas has 1.5 minutes remaining.
Very good. Want to make sure that we clear up any misconceptions about this bill. This bill does not tell the military that they cannot pursue alternative sources of fuel. What it does is it removes all restrictions that have been placed on the military and on the federal government to procure any type of fuel, whether it's based on coal technology, whether it's based on the oil sands from a friendly country next door in Canada. It contains no restrictions. It takes away the restrictions that have manipulated the market and have forced up the cost of energy for the Defense Department. For instance, the Defense Department the Navy was buying vegetable oil to burn in its ships and aircraft in 2010 at a cost of $424 per gallon. Last year, this cost was reduced to $27 a gallon, yet it's still 6 times higher than what the cost of normal Navy fuel would be. What this hurts is, it hurts our personnel readiness, it hurts the ability to buy more tanks, to buy more airplanes, to buy more protective gear for our men and women in the military. It also hurts our taxpayers. As I said earlier, it keeps the military being able to even buy fuel from Canadian oil sands next door, which hopefully someday will be transported through the Keystone XL pipeline down to United States refineries. I want to also talk about what the Defense Department has said, and I'm going to read some quotes from a letter from the General Counsel of the Department of Defense to Senator Inhofe. It says,
gentleman's time has
yield back.
expired.
I'd like to, Madam Chair, move to strike the last word and yield some additional time to the gentleman, another 5 minutes, if you're so inclined.
Thank you.
The gentleman from New Jersey has already used the time available to him by striking the last word.
I'm asking unanimous consent that I be given another 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I would be happy to yield the gentleman some time if he needs it to close.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I in turn yield some additional minutes to the gentleman.
Well, thank you. I should be able to do this in a minute. And a letter from the General Counsel of the Department of Defense to Senator Inhofe. It says the Department of Defense supports Senate 2827, a bill to repeal a requirement with respect to the procurement and acquisition of alternative fuels. The bill would repeal Section 526 of the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. Section 526 has the potential to generate significant problems for the DoD in its procurement of fuels for the national defense. It creates uncertainty about what fuels the DoD can procure, and it will discourage the development of new sources, particularly reliable domestic sources of energy supplies for the armed forces. I yield back.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
I would simply reiterate my objection to the gentleman's amendment, so that is clear for the record, and I would yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey rise?
Madam Chair, I move that the committee do now rise.
The question is on the motion that the committee rise. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the committee rises.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union, having had under consideration H.R. 5325, directs me to report that it has come to no resolution thereon.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has had under consideration H.R. 5325 and has come to no resolution thereon. The Chair lays before the House the following personal requests.
Leave of absence requested for Mr. Baca of California for today, Mr. Berman of California for today, Mr. Heinrich of New Mexico for today, and Mrs. Napolitano of California for today and Wednesday, June 6th.
Without objection, the personal requests are approved. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
I move that the House do adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.